While legends themselves may come and go, their stories are forever. And through these stories, these are how legends become immortal. And you don't have to fight monsters or overthrow dictatorships or accomplish an impossible task to become a legend. You just have to do something that someone else finds worthwhile to pass along. Showing up to a work Zoom meeting in your Hawaiian shirt on a hammock in the beach? Legendary. Leaving a test answer blank because it asked for an example of a risk and you wanted to take that chance. Legendary. Going to the Florida Everglades wrapped in pieces of raw meat in the middle of the night with no flashlight. Stupidity. True story, by the way. However, sometimes you can become a legend with simply by eating a piece of chocolate. One such legend is Lady Godiva of Coventry. Now, Godiva was married to the Earl of Mercer and the Lord of Coventry and lived in Coventry. At the time, the Earl decided to raise taxes and tolls on all products in their fair town. And the townspeople could barely afford it and complained about it. And Lady Godiva, being a people's person, heard their pleas and their begs and went to her husband and also pleaded with him, "Kind husband, please, could you lower the taxes and tolls on our people? They can barely afford the food on their table." The husband, deciding to listen to his wife and placate her, so, "Dear, dear, foolish wife, don't you know how we afford your fine wines and your decadent chocolates that you like to eat? Without them, we wouldn't be able to provide you with the lavishness that you deserve and require." Lady Godiva says, "Well, husband, dear husband, if that's what's required of me to lower the taxes on our people, then I gladly welcome it." But he scoffed it off and ignored her. Next day, Lady Godiva comes to her husband one more time. "Please, please, dear husband, I beseech you, listen to me. Lower the taxes and tolls on our people. They can barely afford water now." "Dear, dear, naive wife, don't you know how can we afford for roads and our army to protect us without these taxes and tolls? And how can we afford to have merchants and peddlers come?" She goes, "Well, if our people had more money to spend on the peddlers, wouldn't that increase trade?" He just laughed and shook his head and sent her away. On the third day, she comes this time, but instead of pleading, she goes, "Listen, dear husband of mine, you need to lower these taxes and tolls on our people. They're about to riot, and if you do not, we may not have a town to be lord and lady of. I am warning you, please lower the taxes and tolls." Tired of placating her, the husband goes, "Well, if you are so worried about the people of Coventry and are in protest with them, let's see what they think of you with no dignity as you ride naked across the market. Should you ride a horse without any apparel from one end to the other end of the city, I shall lower the taxes and tolls." Lady Godiva takes a bite of her chocolate, sips her wine, puts it down and says, "Bet." So the next day, she issues a proclamation throughout the town saying that everyone is to be indoors for and windows shuttered, and no one is to be out during this hour. And during that time, she was going to do her infamous ride down the town square. And for the most part, most people did. So they went into their homes, they locked up their doors and shutter, and decided to rest during that time because they realized that Lady Godiva was doing this for the people. So she had her horse, she took off her hair, let it down so that would cover most of her body. Her long tresses went down. She got up on her horse and started her trek down the town square. Now, everyone except for one person took heed of this proclamation, And it was poor Thomas McLean who decided he just needed to have a peek of Lady Godiva. So during this hour, instead of locking himself in his house with his windows and doors shut, he decided to take one peep and climb a tree to get a better look at Lady Godiva as she crosses the town square. Unfortunately, during this climb, he misstep and falls and tumbles to his death. And hence, that is why we call him Peeping Tom, and the karma can sometimes be a bitch. There's once the ride was finished, her husband went she went to her husband and said, "Dear husband, I have done what you asked. Now please lower the taxes and tolls." And he did so, except on one item, and that was horses, because he was petty. Now there's another lady I like to talk about who also proved herself legendary in more ways than one. And this comes from a tale in Senegal, in the land of Tarokoro. There was a young girl named Aida who was taken from her homeland Tarokoro by her mother because the king had issued a proclamation that all females and all female babies, were to be executed because he deemed them unnecessary. Hearing this proclamation, all the females, including Ada's mother, ran away from their home country of Tarokoro to the neighboring country and became refugees. Now, when Ada was born, there was a huge thunderstorm, a great big maelstrom that was very rare in that area. However, because of the storm, or whether because the gods blessed her, she was born with a gift. She had the power to pray for rain or for no rain. And so, as she was growing up, and as she heard about her stories of her home country, how she was chased out, how her mother was chased out, and grandmother out of their family home, she prayed for rain everywhere except for her home country of Tarokoro. And for 13 years, it did not rain there until the king of Tarokoro decided to find the issue and heard about Ada, who had the power to bring rain anywhere. So he called for her. He tells his soldier, "Bring me the girl named Ada of 13 years to come before me." And so she comes before the king. They find her. She goes willingly and asks the king, "O king of Tarokoro, why do you not want any woman in your tribe, in your country?" He goes, "Huh, females are weak and they take resources and they contribute absolutely nothing. We are the ones that have to fight the wars. Males are the ones that have to fight wars and pay taxes. We also have to, we are the ones that have to do all the council meetings." She asked the king, "Yes, but who decides that you have to do that?" "The males." Undeterred, he goes, "Well, you guys provide no resources. Males are the ones that have to hunt, are the ones that have to fish, and the ones that have to build the houses. Females just stay there and take advantage, eat the food, and contribute nothing." She goes, "So if I am to do all these, if I can prove myself as worthy as a man by hunting and fishing and building houses, will you repeal your declaration, your proclamation?" He goes, "If you can do such and prove to me you are just as valuable as a male, then yes." So she goes off to set off her first task, to hunt. So she prays to the god, she claps her hands and pray for rain in only one location, in this one spot. And it rains for 5 days, spot only, and no other rain around. Because it's the only watering spot, all sorts of creatures come to drink from this watering spout. And she makes, from a branch and arrow, she makes a spear and gets ready to hunt. And she successfully brings down gazelles. She's able to bring down a warthog with some help, but she's able to hunt because they're all gathered around this watering spot and their defenses are lowered. At the end of the day, she brings a huge haul of game to her king. She goes, "King of Tarokoro, I have brought you enough meat that would have taken 10 adults in 1 week and yet I did in one day. The king looks at the pile of game and realizes this is enough to feed his entire community for a week. He goes, fine, I will accept. You can hunt and you contribute through hunting, but you still have to fish and you still have to show me that you can build houses just as well as any man. She goes, okay. Next day, she asks in the same spot where she asked for 5 days of rain. She asked the gods, please don't let it rain in this area for 5 days. And because of the hot African sun, the entire watering spout that was full just like recently becomes empty, and she starts gathering the fish that had been there in the empty watering hole now, and gathers a mountain of fish and brings it back to her king. King of Tarokoro, here is the bounty of fish I promise you. The same amount of fish that would take in 10 men a whole week to do, I did in one day. Do you do you agree that I can fish as well as any men? The king, realizing that he couldn't say anything else, says, fine, I agree. You fish as well as any men, but you still must prove your worth by building a house. She goes back to that same spot, gathers all the mud that hasn't quite dried out yet, and start building multiple houses and having all the people of her community, all the females gathered together, help build, collect the mud, stack it up, dry it, build over and over again until by the end of the day they built a whole community of houses. She calls to the king, King of Tarokoro, look at this neighborhood of houses I have built in your village. Do you not agree that I can build as well as any men now? He takes a look at all the new built house, tests the foundation. Very well. I admit you can build as well as any men. She goes, now I've proven I can hunt and fish and build houses as well as any male in your village. Will you repeal your proclamation? He goes, very well, I have no choice. Females are now allowed back in the country of Tarokoro. And they all rejoice and clap and praise Aida for this miraculous event, this legendary event. And they all come back into the houses they just rebuilt just for the females. And since then, is one of the few villages where they actually ask the woman for their opinion, where women have a say in this village. And they look to them as leaders, not just as nurturers, but leaders, as providers, as supporters. It is thanks to one legendary girl named Aida. So I say to you, think about what you can do to be a legend. Sometimes you just need to take a bite of chocolate.